Who are we on right now?
Oh, probably some hairy, sweaty guy from New York.
Oh, gross. New York.
Hoo boy, we're in for a doozy, aren't we? WTF 101 is an adult animated educational sci-fi comedy series created by CollegeHumor's Mike Trapp that aired between January and March of 2019 as a new original series for their streaming service Dropout TV. The series follows the misadventures of 4 high schoolers who are in detention who are dragged along by their eccentric professor to view the most outlandish and disturbing tidbits of knowledge that both history and nature have to offer. While it did some okay numbers in viewership when it first came out, it didn't really leave that much of a lasting impression online and entered the realm of obscurity fairly quickly. I first heard about it around the time that it was coming out, but I never really bothered to watch it because, well, like I said, it didn't really leave that much of a lasting impression on me, and plus it was behind a paywall. That is until the middle of this year, when I finally got around to watching its 10-episode run, and I gotta say, I definitely have some thoughts to share about it, and so I thought, hey, why don't I make a video about this whole animated anomaly of a show?
That would be dangerous, stupid, and probably pointless. Which is my favorite combination!
Stay tuned, y'all, and just remember, everything you're about to learn is real. Hey folks, how's it going? If you're new here, I'm Jack the Retromaniac. Thanks for stopping by. I'm glad you could join our circle, and with that, let's get on with our topic. So, it's no secret to a lot of us by now that a lot of educational animated shows are primarily directed towards a younger audience. There just aren't a lot of educational cartoons aimed at more mature audiences. Sure, we may have gotten some more adult content that parodied children's educational shows, but we never really got a whole lot of shows that were both strictly about education and just for adults. And the ones we did notice, well, let's just say they weren't the best. Going off of that, if there's 2 things I can think of that started to gain prominence in the late 90s to the 2000s, and even into the 2010s, is children's educational cartoons with the popularity of networks like PBS Kids and Disney Junior and Nick Jr. only growing, and the other one is the internet. I know, you might be wondering, where am I going with this? Don't worry, I'm getting there. In my prime years at elementary school, when I wasn't watching Nick Jr. Disney Channel or the Lego Club show, there was one other form of content that I would watch. Useless trivia! I would primarily bask in this corner of the internet by watching Matthew Santoro, who I would still consider to be one of the early goats of YouTube. You might have heard of him. Matthew would primarily make 2 types of educational content. His 50 Amazing Facts series, where he would list off a series of random obscure fun facts about the world, whether it be about animals, history, or even science. The other would be his top 10 list, where he would count up 10 segments on a particular topic, with each of the 10 segments discussing something different about said topic. I don't know, I guess I just found the knowledge he'd present kinda charming, whether it be practically useful or not, and hey, sometimes it was. Now, I did say I watched this content in elementary school and even into middle school, and when you're that young and also on the spectrum, some of these facts probably went over my head at the time, and definitely something I watched a bit too young.
There's a fish in SpongeBob SquarePants that's been shown in multiple episodes with a clearly shown penis.
Now, what am I rambling about one of my favorite childhood YouTubers who had absolutely no involvement in the show I'm about to talk about today for? Well, now that I've graduated grade school and nostalgia haunts my college years like a clingy poltergeist, I started revisiting some of Matt's videos alongside some of the old educational shows I used to watch around the same time and thought to myself, which brings us to WTF 101. And yeah, I know these 2 things don't really have anything to do with this show, but I couldn't really think of any other segue to get to this point. I don't know, transitions are hard. Plus, I figured these 2 are kind of share the same subject matter. I need to shut the hell up and get to the point. So, enough babbling about childhood YouTubers and shows. Let's talk about what the hell, or rather what the fuck, the show actually is. So, WTF 101 was created by CollegeHumor, and they had previously dabbled in animation before, but most of it was mainly collaborations with other studios, or parodies of already existing properties, so making a completely new show that wasn't based off of something was relatively new territory for them. The series mainly follows 4 high schoolers. Mindy, the quote-unquote altruistic girl who's often at odds with the others.
This fucking fascist school is punishing me for distributing condoms and promoting safe sex.
Whoa, Mindy's talking about sex! Whoa!
Jason, the asshole-ish class clown type guy.
Detention isn't for learning. We're just supposed to sit here and quietly destroy school property. Hot.
River, the nonchalant stoner type.
Okay, what were you even on?
Some drugs?
Yeah, what kind?
I don't know. Whatever was in the dumpster this morning.
And Brad, the stupid guy, who has some questionable interests, to say the least.
This is fucking hot.
Alongside them in detention is Professor Foxtrot, who I would describe as some unholy offspring of Miss Frizzle and Rick Sanchez.
So why are you here?
It seemed like fun!
Foxtrot drags these 4 detentionees along with her to teach them about the most disturbing tidbits of knowledge about history and nature that would make any normal person go... Along the way, they meet up with various historical figures, both well-known and more obscure ones, and they get to witness their... let's just call them peculiar events. And these events can vary greatly, everything from failed military ops, disastrous parties and expeditions, duels and scams that people somehow got away with, and even people, experimenting on themselves.
You simply must try the glass marbles.
As well as, they also get to meet various animals of all sorts, both doing horrible things and sometimes, or rather often, dying horribly.
Oh, look at that cute little baby porpoise. Aww, I'm gonna go kill that fuck.
Each episode consists of 3 segments related to Foxtrot's lessons, and let me just say, some of these segments can get really graphic. I mean, that was the whole point, but still.
This is science?
Now, I know I sound like I'm trying to dogpile on this show, but I do think there are some points that I genuinely want to highlight that I think are worth complimenting. First off, I think the animation is actually pretty solid for the most part. I get that a lot of people will find this art style kind of generic, but it also felt like they were at least trying to do something different with the medium animation, and I feel like it gives a lot more personality than a lot of other shows with this similar art style. Hell, even some of the grosser scenes are well animated.
Cream of blood.
And speaking of gross out, let's move on to the writing. Is the show funny? Well, the best answer I can give is kind of. I will say, it definitely has a lot of that signature college humor type comedy of being really aggressive and vulgar and using swear words every other sentence, but I wouldn't say that's necessarily a bad thing. It actually kind of reminds me of another show by College Humor, Adam Ruins Everything, which weirdly enough was also about education with obscure and often disturbing knowledge. And it also had an animated spin-off. Huh. There also is a lot of shock humor, as to be expected. However, I think this is a rare case of a show where it actually uses shock humor to its benefit, since, as the show makes a point out of, history and nature can essentially be really long, drawn-out shock jokes. I think both of these fields hold great potential for some humorous writing, but more often than not, it can be a bit hard to swallow, but if you can get past it, I think it can actually be pretty funny at times.
Now we know. It takes 52 hours for gravel to go through the digestive tract.
Why would we need to know that?
In case you eat gravel.
Why would you eat gravel?
To see how long it takes to digest.
But why would you want to know that?
In case you eat gravel!
Another thing I want to highlight is the voice acting. All the VAs, I think, portray their characters really well, especially with Professor Foxtrot. This was actress Mary Pat Gleason's first and only time voice acting for an animated series, and I think she really knocked it out of the park, and you can definitely tell at certain parts.
Well, too bad. It's for cool kids only.
Rude.
Sadly, Gleason passed away in 2020 due to cancer, but it really sounded like she had a lot of fun with this series as one of her last roles, and it's nice to see. Rest in peace. Moving on from that, because the show is primarily educational, you can imagine that there isn't a lot in the story department. But surprisingly, they actually do try to throw in some story elements later in the series, and there's a surprising amount of continuity between the episodes. Spoiler alert for a nearly 7-year-old show, by the way, just thought I'd let you know in case you wanted to watch the series after watching this video. Anyway. In episode 8, it's revealed that prior to the Professor gig, Professor Foxtrot was a member of a group of mad scientists known as the Chaos Coalition, and was being pursued by one of her former colleagues, Dr. Gamma, who intended to exile her to a place called the Q Dimension, a sort of purgatory with things like tornado-creating butterflies, Schrodinger's leftover cats, monkeys on typewriters, and duck rabbits. However, in trying to zap her to the Q dimension, Gamma accidentally sends River there instead, and after a lesson on failed expeditions, the class finally travels to the Q dimension to rescue River until Dr. Gamma destroys Foxtrot's teleporter, leaving them trapped. She fixes it, kind of, but as her lesson in the final episode proves, justice can be very unjust, and they end up back in the Q dimension, but still vow to somehow make it back. Now, do they ever make it back? I'll give you a hint. So yeah, a bit of an anticlimactic ending to a story that definitely feels kinda tacked on to the end, but hey, there's a story nonetheless, which is kinda nice to see for an educational show. So what are my overall thoughts on WTF 101 as a whole? Well, to be completely honest, after watching it, I think it succeeded in what it was trying to do. It wasn't trying to be the most well-animated, most funny, or hell, even the most important educational show, but in the way that it presented disturbing and gross subject matter in the format that it went with, I think it worked quite well with what it was trying to do. It did exactly what it wanted to do, and did it pretty well, and at the very least, I can say it's become somewhat of a guilty pleasure of mine. I couldn't really find any concrete information on whether there was more planned for this series or not, but with Mary Pat Gleason's death and Mike Trapp leaving College Humor in 2024, I think it's safe to say that we're probably not getting any more content out of the series, at least for the foreseeable future. Overall, I can't quite say that WTF 101 is a great show, but I think it got done what it wanted to in the time that it was given pretty well, and that deserves some level of commendability in my book. I hope you all enjoyed this new video format, and let me know if you want to see more like it in the future, but let's pray this video does well, because as Professor Foxtrot says,
It's not about good and bad. It's about successful.
thanks for stopping by, folks. Have a good one. Peace.